what advice would you guys give to an aspiring investor that's, maybe 6 to 12 months behind where you guys are at right now?
You got to find a mentor.
Mhm.
If you're going into this without much of a real estate background, and even if you have one, finding somebody with multifamily experience that you can lean on, just having that coaching, we wouldn't have been able to close a deal without it, quite frankly.
Getting a mentor and getting a much more experienced partner. He's done a lot for us, just as far as helping us navigate everything, right? Before you reach out to a mentor, I'd say just do some research, read some books, go online, listen to podcasts. You know what you're talking about when you do try to vet a mentor or a partner.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. Very excited for today's show. We've got two guys on the line with us. This is part of our first deal series episodes. And we have Tyler Caglia and Mike Van Groningen with us today, who recently closed on a 124-unit apartment complex. It was a Class C property, $6.5 million purchase price in Lafayette, Louisiana. They just recently closed at the date of recording 50 days ago on April 1st. And by the time you listen to this, it'll probably be about 2 months in the rearview mirror. But that said, Tyler, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, so very impressive for a first deal. I mean, $6.5 million property. But before we jump into the nuts and bolts on that one, let's learn a little bit more about you guys. Let's talk about your guys' background and history. And I know you guys have a lot of things in common. Give us an idea of who you guys are, where you come from, and we'll talk about the deal itself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we're from sunny California. So we live in the Central Valley of California. We both have construction backgrounds. We're both project managers in the same construction company here based out of Fresno, California. Basically have the same lights, love real estate. I've always loved real estate, have invested in it on a small scale in single family homes, both in California and out of state, and just basically got the itch for multifamily investing last year. And so Tyler and I created CVG Capital LLC back in July, August of last year, and have been working hard ever since.
All right. Now, is the name just the initials, or does that actually mean something?
No, it's just Caglia and Van Groningen.
Oh, that's easy. CVG. There we go. Makes sense now that you say it, but sometimes a little slow putting two together. But I've actually learned a lesson not to ask for acronyms online, because one guy had the F word in part of his acronym, and it was the official name of the company was 6 letters .llc or whatever. But anyway, I figured CV and G, it shouldn't have anything like that in there. So yeah, so you guys work together, same construction company, and you told me prior same college together. Were you there at the same time?
No. So Tyler's several years younger than I am. And so I had already graduated by the time he got there.
Okay. So same college, you're working for the same company, you both have an interest in real estate, and you decide to partner up and go slay the dragon, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right. Nice. So let's talk about your guys' reason for doing this, and I like to call it the big burning why. What's your motivation? What drives you essentially?
I would say for me, it's just, my family, trying to create a better life for my family, and also following a passion of mine, just real estate in general, and kind of that entrepreneurial spirit that I've got kind of burning inside of me. Have a great day job, and I have no intention of leaving there, but I've also got this other side of me that wants to dabble in real estate and whatnot. So this is a great way to kind of do that, Yeah.
And Mike, how about you? What's your big burning why?
Yeah, same reason. Just want to build wealth and not only set my family up for their future, but also help others as well. So it'd be a dream of mine one day to grow this business large enough to just be able to help people on a large scale. So really looking forward to seeing what's in store.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, closing on something this big as your first deal, I mean, you got a lot of good things in store. I mean, that's a big hump to get over. So speaking of, I mean, two guys working construction project management, well suited for real estate investing in a lot of ways, but I'm sure there's some challenges in your road. What were some of the biggest challenges, getting started? Not necessarily with this deal, but just getting the ball rolling up front.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn in the multifamily space. So we both own homes here in California, so we know what it's like to own a single family home and have rented out, small rentals and things over several years and got a feel for it. But when you take on a multifamily property, it's completely different. You're buying a business. You're not just buying a piece of real estate.
Sure.
So it's just the underwriting that goes in. It's more than just looking up what the home value is on Zillow and knowing how much it's worth and how much I could rent it for. There's so much more that goes into it. So we really had to sit down and educate ourselves on how this whole process works, both from sourcing all the way through, analysis, underwriting, and then closing on the property as well. So it's you've got a steep uphill battle when you first start out brand new, not knowing anything. But luckily with how much information is available out there today, whether it be online, through books, podcasts such as your own, there's really no excuse not to learn it. It's just, you got to put the time in and really just open yourself up to learning a whole new way of looking at real estate and a business.
Yeah. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, it just took a lot of time just studying, a lot of late nights, reading books, listening to podcasts, like Mike said. And when you look at the task from, the very beginning, it seems quite daunting. And as you really start to dive into it, going step by step, it gets much more realistic, I'd say, to where we realized that this was a path that we were both well suited for and, could work out well for meeting our goals.
Yeah, and you're right. It can be intimidating once you learn everything that's involved. It's definitely a lot more complicated than buying a single family home and renting a single family home. There's a lot of parallels in there. I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's just taking a single family home and taking it to a different level is what you're doing. But there's a lot of extra things in there that you may not expect. And I feel the same way. There's a lot of things I had to relearn and I didn't expect as well. So let's talk a little bit about, the team. I know you guys were lead sponsors. I know you have some other people in the GP. Can you talk about, how you guys met them, how you guys came together, and basically how you divided things up?
So we joined the group Think Multifamily for many reasons, but there's quite a few resources within the group that allowed us to kind of build the team pretty easily. Mike and I are asset managing the deal, found the deal, and we took it to closing. We also have, key principals on the deal that are also, raising money and whatnot. So that's primarily how we found this network was of people was through Think Multifamily, and couldn't imagine doing it without a group like that. I mean, there's a lot of components, as we all know, to each deal that you do, and there's a lot of the SEC has a lot of rules that limit what you can do as well. So navigating that was quite difficult, but I think Multifamily made it a lot easier than it could have been.
I'm a huge proponent of getting into groups like that, finding people who are like-minded, finding a huge pool of eligible partners, people who want to do the same thing that want to do the same thing that you want to do, and maybe bring slightly different skill sets, because it does take a lot of skills. Mike, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just say that having the built-in team inside the group was just amazing. I couldn't imagine going through this and having to, create a letter of intent format from scratch and a PSA and all the things that go into it. I can't imagine taking that on without the built-in team we had inside Think Multifamily, whether it be the attorney, a mortgage broker, CPA, just everybody you need on your team was already there. And we're not required to necessarily use any particular person, but having somebody that is used to how the group operates and how syndication works was so important.
So not only did this group have potential partners, but you had all these support people for your deals. I found my support network going to big networking events. Went to these networking events, and every time I went, I'm like, I had my little 3x5 card. I'm like, okay, I need to find an SEC attorney. I need to find a CPA. I need to find But nice that group had everything right there for you, and the good ones do. And that's the truth. The good ones do. They kind of anticipate what everybody needs, bring them all to the table for you. So let's do this. Let's talk about how you guys found this particular deal.
So we started, I think I want to say August of last year, just started reaching out to brokers over email, trying to connect over Zoom as well. Our ability to travel sometimes is limited compared to people that do this full time. So we
Right.
try to make the most of it when we do travel. So we just started reaching out to brokers. One tip I got was find the the youngest looking guy on the website and reach out to him, hoping that he's maybe more eager to build up a base of potential buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that, and we actually weren't looking in Louisiana, but the brokers that we were talking to were in Louisiana, and just so happened that we caught one of them at the right time and said, hey, I just had something fall out off market if you guys want to take a look at it. And right away it kind of met our minimum expectations by quite a bit, actually, initially. Then we did some negotiating with the seller and still ended up being a pretty good deal, so we pushed forward with it. But a lot of people go and they focus on specific markets or specific brokers. We more so took the approach of let's cast a wide net and more so try to build those relationships. And we sort of told them, hey, we'll consider any deal you've got. We're not limited by the market, but of course, if it's in a market that we're not interested in, we'll let you know. But that's how we fell into this deal.
Nice. And a lot of deals come out of contract. I mean, a lot of people will scoop deals up on the rebound like you guys did. Was the broker able to share information about the previous contract price or anything else like that?
They did. I don't think they shared a lot of information. I don't think we ever found out the exact price. I don't think we asked, to tell you the truth. But great broker, great guys. We would absolutely do many more deals with them. Very honest people, and they pretty much answered just about every question we asked.
Good. So you find the deal from the broker, you put the offer in, you get the offer accepted, everything's good to go. And then next step for you guys, I'm assuming was due diligence, right? Walk us through you guys' due diligence process and what came up there.
Yeah, so we bring out a team of we hired a due diligence consulting service. They come out, they walk every unit, and they average about 40 to 50 photos of each unit, and create a database for us that we can look back on to help our underwriting. So we had a basically an electronic database of all of the units and what work was required, whether or not they were premium units or more classic units. Just basically gathered as much information as we could. We also brought a service out to scope the plumbing lines, that sort of stuff, look at the roofs, all the big ticket items that you'd normally expect. And then Tyler and I, being construction guys, also met the team out there and did our own bit of investigating, whether it be concrete walkways that need to be replaced, asphalt removal and replacement, trees. We made all those decisions ourselves. We're the ones, the lead sponsors, we're the ones underwriting the deal. We knew what a realistic budget for those things would be, so we put that all together. And so we had a team of probably 5 or 6 of us out there for several days. Yeah.
Nice. And any big ticket items come up during the due diligence process that may have changed the game a little?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Being an early 70s property, we found the big culprit, aluminum wire. So we happened to walk into a down unit that was pretty tore up, and the sub panel cover was off. And I looked in and saw a bunch of silver wires right smack down.
Oh, wow. Yep.
I was like, wait a second. And interestingly enough, we had asked a question. I mean, that's one of the first questions you want to ask is, does it have aluminum wire? Because obviously it's costly to remediate that. It's a big problem for insurance companies and lenders. So they had originally said that it was copper. And so when we found aluminum, it definitely caught us by surprise. We ended up doing spot checks, and the entire property had utilized aluminum wire.
So the whole property had aluminum wire. Did they remediate any of it at all, or was it just all straight aluminum to the fixtures?
We only spot checked it, but every building that we checked and every unit had 100% aluminum without any sort of remediation. Yeah,
I mean, if you spot check and you're getting 100%, it's very likely that that's like that throughout the entire property. So, I mean, aluminum wiring, it affects your insurance rates significantly. It affects lending as well. I mean, some lenders are going to use a whole different set of numbers. How did that affect your underwriting, and what did you guys do about it?
Yeah, so we got a local electrician, electrical contractor involved, had them put a price together on what that would cost to go into each unit and remediate that. And there's different methods of doing it, but generally speaking, you have to add some Alumicon wire nuts at each fixture, at each outlet, at each switch with copper pigtails.
Yep.
and came up with a dollar amount to remediate the entire property and had to add that to our CapEx budget.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So next question. I mean, obviously this wasn't disclosed by the seller. Did you go back to the seller? Did you go back to the broker and say, hey guys, this kind of changes things? What happened there?
We did. It definitely changed our mood. We were really excited until we saw that, while we're on site doing due diligence. So it took the wind out of our sails a bit. So once we regathered and regathered our emotions, we went back to the broker and they said, well, find out what it's going to cost. So we got the price from the electrical contractor, went back to the broker, and was able to renegotiate a partial credit at closing for the aluminum wire. The problem is it doesn't add any value to the property. It doesn't increase income, so it's really just a dead cost that you have to do in order to keep your insurance costs in line and satisfy what the lender's requirements are.
Yeah, and I mean the real ROI is just cutting the expense is all it is. And you're right. I mean, no tenant in the world is going to walk in and say, "I'll pay more for that one because it has copper wiring." I mean, it doesn't happen. But there is the line item on the expenses. The debt's a little bit more favorable. So there is an ROI. It's just it's not as exciting as the other ways to boost your NOI. After power outage number 2, we're back online here. So we were talking about finding the deal, talking about everything else. And the question that I've now asked, I think 3 times, is tell me about the capital raise. How difficult was it to get to that $2.6 million? And, how did you and your team go about that?
It was a bit challenging. So luckily we had just a great team that we built inside of the Think Multifamily group. So we were able to partner with several other like-minded individuals and just had a great partnership team. And as part of that, a lot of them helped raise capital for this as well. And so, $2.6 million, a lot of money, but it's really not a huge deal inside of the Think Multifamily group. So there's a number of deals that have to raise much more capital than ours. Challenge that we faced is Louisiana is just a new market to the group. There aren't any other existing assets they own there, and they haven't tried to raise capital for deals inside Louisiana before, as far as we know. So we did have a little bit of a challenge educating investors and filling them out and making sure they're comfortable with the market. A lot of the feedback we got was that it's a market that's historically been dependent upon oil and gas. That's not necessarily the case anymore. So a lot of times you just had to point them back to different data points that showed, the economic kind of outlook of what Louisiana looks like. And again, just a new area for the group is always going to be challenging. But at the end of the day, we're able to complete the raise and had enough funds to be able to close. And looking forward to basically asset managing from here on out, working out our business plan.
Yeah, right. And that's you bring up a good point. I mean, we, Four Oaks as a company, we have, seasoned our investors. We have told them, numerous times that, we are focusing on a certain area. So if we deviated from that, so if we come out with a property from that area, the investors, they're not going to have that big road bump in the way. It's just going to be like, oh yeah, they tell us they're focusing in South Carolina and they just sent me a property, an investment opportunity in South Carolina. Yeah, of course, makes sense. But if the investors aren't used to you guys here, or aren't used to hearing the wonderful things about Lafayette, Louisiana, that could be, cause for pause for a lot of people. And that's completely understandable. But the other thing you said, many hands make light work, very, very old saying. I mean, my mother used to tell it to me, but that's how I judge old. If I heard it when I was a kid, it's an old saying. But you guys were able to leverage the partnerships you developed and Think Multifamily, and many people were able to go out searching for capital. So let's look at the closing process. Were there any other big challenges you ran into trying to get this over the finish line?
So lending was, a little difficult in Lafayette, just in general. It took quite a while to get the lender's underwriting kind of finalized. Just due to it being, it's really, I mean, it's a smaller market. There's 500,000 people in the MSA, so it's not crazy small, but The seller we bought it from, I think, owns 5 or 6 properties there, and there's not a crazy amount of comps, right? Maybe 8 or 10 in the whole MSA. So just dealing with limited data, I think, was difficult for us at first to make sure that this was a good deal, and we were confident it was when we moved forward.
Mhm.
And then I think the lender kind of had to get over that same hump. And one thing that made it easier for us is we really liked the market. Mike and I did, and so going back to capital raising a little bit, we had to kind of convey everything we knew about the market to
Mhm.
investors that ask us questions. If they don't like the market, no worries, but
Yeah.
if you are someone interested, here's what we like about the deal. And, the market itself has really high occupancy. I think the average for our comps was like 97%.
Mhm.
And we had a property less than a mile away that was managed by our selected property manager. And we had really good data on that, and they were, doing really well there, and getting above the pro forma rents that we were hoping to get. So that really helped us when the lender would ask questions, or when we had questions, we could lean on that property quite a bit, since it was, I
Mhm.
mean, an exact comp. I think it was slightly older, but
Yeah.
that certainly helped us navigate that
Mhm.
issue.
All right. So lender, and this has happened to us once or twice before as well, where if there's not enough comps, or there's not the right comps, obviously the lender's going to take a very conservative approach, and it's either going to delay, or they're going to come up with a number that's less than what you expect as far as proceeds. And sounds like this delayed the process a little bit, but you guys were able to get it moving along.
Yeah, it delayed it, but they also did cut proceeds. So
Mhm.
we were scheduled to close in I believe it was like early March, and the lender had taken a while to perform their underwriting. We were under the assumption that it was taking a little bit longer due to the limited data in the market.
Mhm.
And so when they finally did come back, they said, "Hey, we just don't feel comfortable with the number that we were at before." What's interesting is the appraisal based on cap rate was even higher than what we were purchasing it for, but the appraisal based on comps, because the limited data, was lower. And
Mhm.
so they took the more conservative approach, like you said, cut
Yep.
proceeds, which delayed the process, because then we had to go back and raise more capital.
Yeah.
So, we finally worked things out with the lender, got the final proceed amount, finished the raise, and we're able to close on April 1st.
All right. Nice.
And
Nice.
it was nice having, everyone on the team was motivated to get to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
So our investors were excited. The lender was pushing for
Yeah.
ways to get us there. We obviously wanted to close the deal. Everyone on the team wanted to find a way to get there, and we did,
Okay.
relatively easy.
Here's something that a lot of first time syndicators don't realize. The lender gets paid to close, the brokers get paid to close, the attorneys get paid when everything closes. So most of these people are commission and fee based. So if you guys don't get to closing, nobody gets paid, and that's something that's really nice in the industry. I mean, lenders are going to be very conservative because that's just how they do things. But end of the day, the lender is going to want to move things forward. The broker is going to want to push things forward, and hopefully the seller still wants to push things forward when things get delayed a little bit. Now, incidentally, on the delay, did you guys have an extension built into the contract? Did you have to use the extension, or did you pass the extension date?
Yeah, no, we had 30 days
Mhm.
additional, so we pushed it an extra month, and
Okay.
we had plenty of time to close after we did that.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem. And that's why you build extensions into contracts. So good enough. So yeah, you guys closed on April 1st, which, like I said, was about 7 weeks ago. Can you talk about the transition and where you guys have come from closing?
With all the delays we had in closing, it was a moving target, and so we had moved the closing date so many times that our property management company just kind of put them in an unfair position, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And so finally nailed down April 1st after we nailed down 3 other dates before that. But
Mhm.
finally came up with April 1st, and they got the team on site. And so in all this commotion of trying to close and raise and proceeds, we didn't necessarily set ourselves up for the smoothest transition. And
Mhm.
so it took our property management company, at least 2 to 3 weeks to just get in there and really just get their feet underneath them.
Mhm.
And so, didn't have we weren't necessarily just rolling out the execution of our business plan day one. Subsequently, we've had, many meetings. We have weekly calls with them, sometimes even more frequently. to discuss, what our goals are, what our business plan is, and how to implement that. So we're well underway executing our business plan now, but it took a few weeks to even start that process.
Yeah.
It's been great so far, and
Yeah.
so far we're really happy with how it's performing.
Yeah, I think the purchase on the first of the month, I don't know. I think that'd be difficult for property managers and tenants. I mean, because it's when rent's due, so you're probably going to have a couple people who are paying the old property manager, a couple people who are paying the new property manager. There's a lot of stuff that goes on the first of the month. I mean, you guys close when you have to close, and that's unfortunately a side effect of it. But I don't know. I would assume property managers would probably rather close with enough time to get the word out on, hey, we're the new managers, here's where the rent's going to get paid. But I'm sure between the two property managers, the former and the new one, everything worked out well. All right, so one question for each of you. I really like to ask this question just to see where everyone's going. But what's next for you guys?
I'd say we've got, we want to close another deal, if we can find a good one. Obviously, the market's really competitive right now, probably crazier than most people have ever seen. So we've got a couple of opportunities in the pipeline that we're vetting right now. And if those don't work out, we'll keep looking. But that's our main focus, is finding our next deal. We have, some investors that are really interested in getting in on the next one. And so we're ready to go. Our focus primarily is, of course, asset managing the deal that we have, and meeting the expectations that we set out originally for that. But and Mike is kind of leading that charge, and I'm more so trying to find that next deal. So just talking to brokers and hopefully going out to see some properties at some point, and hopefully we can make something happen in the next couple months.
All right. Yeah. I mean, the law of the first deal is going to come into effect here. And I think once brokers realize that you guys can raise some large chunks of change and purchase 124 units, I'm willing to bet the second one comes a lot quicker and easier than the first. All right. So what advice would you guys give to an aspiring investor that's, maybe 6 to 12 months behind where you guys are at right now?
One of the biggest things that I think we need to do, and Tyler and I identified this early on, you got to find a mentor. If you're going into this without, much of a real estate background, and even if you have one, finding somebody with multifamily experience that you can lean on, that has that reputation, that maybe they have a built-in team, much like, what we have if you think multifamily. Just having that coaching, we wouldn't have been able to close a deal without it, quite frankly. And we were also able to partner with our mentor. And so being able to market, yourself as a group owning like 8,000 units makes a difference.
Yeah.
And having that experience, because a lot of brokers, a lot of sellers don't want to take a risk on just two dudes from California, so finding somebody that you could partner with and use their reputation is going to be key. So that's probably my biggest word of advice, is find a mentor, find a group.
I love it. And I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, the mentor is a game changer in this industry. All right, yeah. Tyler, same question for you, brother.
Yeah, I would absolutely back that up. People that know Mike and I personally, that were interested in the deal, I think they would have probably invested had we not partnered with anyone else, just because they know us, know what we're capable of. But other investors that don't know us, it's hard to explain to them what you are capable of, and for them to trust you with their money, right? So getting a mentor and getting a much more experienced partner in the deal with us, Mark Kinney, went a long way, and he's done a lot for us, just as far as helping us navigate everything, right? We've had a million questions about things, and before you reach out to a mentor, I'd say just do some research, read some books, go online, listen to podcasts. What you're talking about when you do try to vet a mentor or a partner. Obviously, when you're partnering with someone, even in something like this, you're committing to, being in business with that person for the next 5-6+ years, depending on your syndication model. So you really want to know what you're talking about when you try to find those partners. You don't want to just jump into it and expect them to, coach you through the whole thing from the first step to the last, right? You want to be knowledgeable. So that absolutely is the best thing you can do, in my opinion. try to connect with people and partner with people that are more experienced than you and bring value to them as well, if you can.
Yeah, it's a two-way street with partnerships. You have to know what you're doing somewhat to bring value to the more experienced players. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Mentors are important, and you got to hustle. You got to hustle to be part of the team as well, and make yourself attractive as a partner. All right. So last question for each of you: how can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, they can reach out to us at our website. It's cvgcapitalllc.com. So there's 3 L's there at the end. cvgcapitalllc.com, and you can reach out to us. We have our contact info there, email address, and even sign up if you're interested, in being a potential investor that wants to take a look at our some of our new offerings.
All right, and we're going to put that in the show notes. cvgcapitalllc.com, 3 L's for anybody, and actually 2 C's in a row, I guess, is llc.com, just a dot in between it. But we'll put that in the show notes. Tyler, anything to add, or hit both of you at the same place?
Yeah, reach out, even if you've just got some questions, you're just curious what we're doing, if just reach out to us. We love talking real estate, and we'd love to connect or help someone that was in our shoes, where we were 6 months ago. We'd love to, help someone get to where we're at now.
Perfect. All right. And I appreciate you saying that. Somebody that I've followed for a while has said many times, on this apartment investing journey, you walk with one hand down, helping the next guy up, but you're also going one hand up, with somebody pulling you. So very much a case of that here. Thank you two for coming on the show. Appreciate your time, and look forward to, hearing great things from you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for all you do with your podcast as well. It's great content on here.
Thank you. Appreciate that.